Greetings, we hope all is well. This is the Walking by Faith podcast hosted by Minister Larry Montgomery, Sr. and friends. Genesis 1:1, KJV, states, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." And 2 Corinthians 5:7, KJV, states, "For we walk by faith, not by sight." While Romans 10:17, KJV, says, "So then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God." Which brings us to Hosea 4:6, KJV, that states, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Welcome to another episode of the Walking by Faith podcast. I am your host, Minister Larry Montgomery, Sr. The sole purpose of this podcast is to present candid discussions about various words that are found in the Bible with an eye towards defining in the context of these troubled times, along with clarity, insight, commentary, and hopefully some revelation to interested listeners. This podcast is a presentation of the Montgomery Media Group.tv and can be found on most podcast platforms. Video presentations are available on YouTube, the African American Shopping Network channel. This show is sponsored by www.theauthor'scorner.online. Please like us and follow us on Facebook.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Walking by Faith podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Larry Montgomery Sr., and this week's conversation is going to come from Matthew's 11:28-30. We're talking about leaning on Jesus. The Bible encourages believers to lean on Jesus for strength, guidance, and comfort. In Matthew's 11:28-30, Jesus invites us, saying, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." This passage reassures us that when we rely on Him, He offers peace and support in our struggles.
You need to hear this if you're tired of carrying everything alone. What if rest is the real spiritual move? Matthew 11:28-30 flips the script. Here's the quick unpack. Jesus starts with an invitation. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden. That's everyone who's exhausted by life rules, expectations, or shame, not a checklist, an open door. Then he says, take my yoke upon you. A yoke isn't punishment here, it's partnership. Instead of a crushing burden, Jesus offers a shared load. You walk with him, not under him. He promises his yoke is easy and his burden light. Not because life becomes perfect, but because the weight is redistributed. Mercy replaces judgment. Grace replaces striving. Learning replaces legalism. Practically, bring your real stuff. Doubts, deadlines, grief. Pause and pray. Rest intentionally. Sabbath, a breath community that carries you. Start small. Tell one honest truth to God or a friend today, and let some of that weight be lifted. Matthew 11:28-30 isn't about doing more. It's about exchanging what crushes you for a rhythm that restores you. Try the trade. Breathe. Walk with him.
Additionally, if we look to Proverbs 3:5-6, it reminds us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, emphasizing the importance of depending on God rather than ourselves. Now, throughout the New Testament, Jesus is depicted as a shepherd who cares for his flock, always present to help and guide those who follow him. By leaning on Jesus, Christians find hope, encouragement, and the assurance that they are never alone in their journey of faith. When we walk by faith, We acknowledge that our own strength is limited, but Christ's strength is limitless. Leaning on Jesus means surrendering our worries and trusting that His love will sustain us through every challenge. In moments of uncertainty, prayer and reflection on God's Word can help us deepen our reliance on Him and experience the fullness of His grace. To give a couple of examples, we look to Abraham's faith. In Genesis 12, Abraham obeys God's call to leave his homeland and go to an unfamiliar place, trusting that God would lead and provide for him. Abraham leaned on God's promises, even when he could not see the outcome. Now, before I go on to the next example, I just wanted to point out that as human beings, as Christians, really gave some thought to the fact or to the point of leaving our homeland, which could be your home, your community, your county, your city, your state, to go to somewhere you've never been before. It's got to be traumatic. It's got to be a situation that has got to be stressful, if anything. And to lean on or depend on a word from God who you cannot see has got to say a lot about faith. Why would you move when right now things are okay or acceptable or not as bad as you might think? To go someplace else that you've never been, you don't know. This wasn't like leaving, let's just say, New York City and moving to Jersey City, or moving to Phoenix, or moving to San Jose, California, or even moving to, let's just say, for example, Jamaica, West Indies. Now, Jamaica, West Indies may be quite different from city life here in the U.S. However, there's some basics that we would expect to see and have access to one way or another when you go there. But back then, in the Bible days, you really didn't know much about some of these other places, because there was no other than word of mouth from time to time that you would find out how things were going in another land, country. You may not know anybody over there. Obviously, at this point, Abraham did not know anybody from another country, but God had a plan for him. And so God wanted to use him for one reason or another. And so Abraham trusted God in that. He could have stayed where he was, but you know how God is. When he says he wants you to move somewhere, he'll figure out how to get you to move. Now, if you go when he first asks you to go, that's good. But then if you go after he prods you a little bit, you might say, it's not really comfortable here, now. I need to go. It's not like I had before it was, okay, I'll do what you ask, God. This is more like, oh, I got to move. I got to do this. The next example I have is Peter. When we see Peter walking on water. And that's in Matthew 14, 22 to 33. Peter steps out of the boat to walk on water toward Jesus. Despite his fear and the storm around him, Peter experienced the power of leaning on Jesus. He only began to sink when he took his eyes off of Christ. To give a real life or more current example, I would say, if you are facing or dealing with an illness, many believers today testify to finding strength and peace during serious illnesses by leaning on Jesus through prayer, worship, and community support. Now, community support may seem like, well, what does that mean? Community support is your church community. Their faith helps them endure uncertainty and find hope beyond their circumstances. Now, I can testify to leaning on my experience in leaning on Christ. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I find myself, because I am human, wash one way, wash the other way. Today, God, I need you. Tomorrow comes, okay, everything is good. I'm good, God. And that's not what he's trying to get across to us. What he wants to do is demonstrate, reassure us that he's always with us and that he will never leave us. Even in those times when you don't hear or don't think that he's there. If he said, I'm always with you and I will never leave you, that means a lot. And that's the constant or the overarching basis for your faith to grow. My faith growing in God, at the end of the day, is not about me. It's about the life I'm living, the journey that I'm on, because I'm going to come across others, whether they're believers or not. I'm going to come across others, and I'm going to have a testimony. I have a testimony. It's up to me to share it, and I share it because he was good to me when he didn't have to be. He's a good God. I can't say he's a sometime God, because when I need him, he's there. He's there when I didn't even know he was there. So you have to understand that we all have, let's just say, a role to play in this life. There were times when I misunderstood the request for God to give me strength, and that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me when leaning on Jesus. Now, you look at that and you say, God, give me strength, which comes from Philippians 4:13. To a Christian, the plea, God give me strength, means seeking spiritual empowerment and support from God, especially in moments of difficulty or weakness. This request reflects a reliance not on personal ability, but on God's limitless power and the love to sustain, guide, and uplift. Christians believe that true strength comes from a relationship with Christ, as expressed in Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This verse is often cited as a reminder that with faith in Jesus, believers can overcome challenges and endure trials because God's strength is made perfect in their weakness. This only works if we trust in God to do as he said he would, that he would be with us always and never forsake us.
Not many would leave their entire lives behind for a man they barely knew. But that's exactly what 12 extraordinary individuals did. In the book Meet the 12 Men Who Follow Jesus, Dr. Larry Montgomery Sr. takes you on a profound journey. Discover the lives of the disciples, who each played a crucial role in spreading the message of Christ. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a deep dive into faith and sacrifice. These men, from different walks of life, proved that race and background don't matter to God. What counts is belief, and everything else falls into place. Can you name the disciple whose life embodied Jesus' last words? This book will answer that and so much more. Whether you're looking to strengthen your faith or seeking an inspirational read, this book is your go-to resource. Available now on Amazon. Order your copy today and get inspired by the 12 men who walked with Jesus.
If I look to Proverbs 3, 5-6 in this conversation, Christians are encouraged to trust in the Lord rather than their own understanding, which further emphasizes depending on God's strength rather than their own. Additionally, the example of Peter walking on water illustrates how leaning on Jesus provides the courage and strength needed to face life's storms, as Peter was able to walk on water only while his focus remained on Christ. In more practical terms, asking God for strength is an act of humility and faith, inviting God's presence into every aspect of life, from personal struggles to major decisions. This prayer is a way for Christians to surrender control, trust in God's promises, and experience the comfort and assurance that His strength is always available, especially when their own is insufficient. Let's take a look at strength for a second. Strength is not merely physical, it is spiritual. And without a strong spirit, we are weak and can be easily manipulated by both our own mind and the whispers of Satan. In the spirit, we are weak because we are not fully spiritual yet in the natural realm. So we must lean on God to survive. We don't really understand the spiritual realm because, again, we're not fully a part of it. So our understanding requires support from God. Lean not on your own understanding, not only to survive this work, but survive His tests and trials designed to strengthen our trust and love for Him. When you find someone that you can trust in, you got to have love for them. Because whatever you've asked of them, and they continue to deliver it, and I'm not talking about wacky stuff, I'm talking about important stuff. Whatever you ask of them, they show up, and they do what they say they're going to do. They help you. So you got to have love for them, because you know they don't have to show up. And if they show up, they might not have the strength to do, or the tools, or the information, the experience needed to solve or help you in that particular situation. I know that if I make up my mind to do something, that both my mental and physical strength come into play to give me the strength, overall strength, to do what I have decided to do. But when my mind is not made up, you talk about being double-minded, I'm in, I'm not in, I'm out, I'm not in, I think I'm in. When your mind is not fully made up, one or the other, your physical or mental strength, that component gives way at the first surprise. The first thing that you didn't expect to happen happens. But Over the years, I have learned that if I ask God for something and then leave it for Him to deal with, leave it alone, He works it out for my good. I hate when I find myself double-minded about anything. Jesus on one shoulder and Satan on the other shoulder. We know all that cartoon picture. Jesus is telling us he's not continuing to tell us that I'm with you and I'm going to take care of it. He says it once. Because if you trust him and you believe in him, no sense, you can't trust him if you don't believe in him. And if you believe in him, you need to trust him. So he only needs to say it once. Now Satan will be standing there talking to you. Now he got a rap going. He said, oh, you really can't do that. Oh, so-and-so is not going to help you. Well, the weather's not going to be good on that day. You got enough money? Now, you got bills to pay. Anything he could come up with, he's going to whisper in your ear. And then suddenly doubt is there. And you thinking that, well, God, he ain't said nothing. So he must not be down with me. So I got to do what I think I got to do. Now you got total confusion and chaos going on. I can give you some personal examples, probably a number of them. But I want to say that the greatest example that I could offer you, and that a lot of people may not have had the opportunity or may not never get the opportunity to experience this, is love for my wife. Coming up, really didn't understand what love was. Dysfunctional household did not help. Dysfunctional relationships up until I met her did not help. But over the years, I learned, because I leaned on Jesus to help me to try to be a better person. It's not always about me. You got to realize that sometimes that shoe is going to be on the other foot. And when that shoe is on the other foot, you don't want to be treated the way you mistreated somebody else, because it's all about me. Now, there could be plenty of examples, and I'm not going to sit here and give you my business, because I don't know you like that. But trust me, some days are harder than others, but God. And if you trust and lean on him, he will bring you through it. May not necessarily be comfortable all the time. May not necessarily work out like you thought it should work out. But when you look back over your life and you see where he brought you from and brought you through, you got to give him glory. Because again, he didn't have to do anything. And as yours and my creator, he's entitled to and deserves all the glory and honor, whether he did it for you or didn't do it for you. If he didn't do it for you, he certainly had a reason for it. Whether you understood the reason or could understand the reason, we'll find out at some point. But right now and right here, I'm leaning on God, because right now here in the U.S., we got some issues. I have never seen it this stressful. Never. And that doesn't mean I've seen everything, because I haven't been around that long. I've read books, heard stories, seen pictures of what the capacity of hate can do. And people who hate, it ain't a one-time thing. This is an ongoing feeling. This is an urgency to continue to do something, whatever they can do, to hurt you. Why? Because they're hurting. They're hurting a lot, and they don't want to know. They don't want to tell you. They don't even understand why they hate or why they're hurting. But they're reaching and grabbing for, let me blame you. Why? I got nobody else to blame, so it must be you. But as Christians, the two of the greatest commandments, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor. Confused people as we are, human beings, with free will, sometimes it's difficult to really understand and accept God's love. But then, this is what he asks you to do. And he'll help you in that. Love your neighbor. Treat them like you would want to be treated. They may not reciprocate, but God. Trust that he will work it out in his time. Trust that he will work it out in his time. Because once we leave here, it's on and popping for eternity. You make it in, you're good. You don't make it in because you wanted to lean on what you thought was right. Guess what? Anyway, we'll leave it right there. I want to thank you for your time and consideration, and I'll see you again next week, God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Hello, remember me? I am the former publisher of the Community Journal newspaper, Long Island's oldest and longest published weekly newspaper focused on the Black community. I humbly ask that you consider ordering your copy of Long Island's Black History publication today. It offers both you and your family a look at where our community has come from and lightens the way to where it can go to. In the pages of this hard-covered, oversized coffee table memento, you will find a first-hand record of Long Island's Black political renaissance, while only a simple pictorial reminder of the hard-fought victories and sobering reckonings our communities lived through for more than a decade. It recounts a vital chapter of a time when America struggled with its societal identity, and it belongs in every household. Displaying this collection of pictures of the front pages of our community's news on your coffee table will remind us all of the honor our ancestors, community leaders, and everyday citizens' efforts and sacrifices that dared to demand a seat at the table and change the trajectory of our community. The stories recounted in these pages demonstrate two things. First, that the spirit within never dies, and secondly, truth will prevail as long as we remember what is important and why it is important. As people of color who have sacrificed time and again in support and defend this country's democracy, our equity is true, and we have earned the right to enjoy the fruit of it, because we as a people should prosper as America has. Available at www.theauthorscorner.online.
You have been listening to another episode of the Walking by Faith podcast hosted by Minister Larry Montgomery, Sr. and friends. Join us again next time as we continue to labor in this vineyard with an eye towards bringing the words of God to those who are interested. This podcast is a presentation of the Montgomery Media Group.tv and can be found on most podcast platforms. Video presentations are available on YouTube, the African American Shopping Network channel. May God continue to bless you and yours until next time. God bless.